Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So a lot of stuff to get through, so we'll jump straight in. We have what seems to be the full lineup for New York Comic Con in terms of what panels we are going to have. So quickly going through them here, we have the Merch Nation Avatar Legends action figures and games, Water, Earth, Fire, Air, continuing the Avatar Legacy panel, and Nickelodeon's Avatar The Last Airbender 20th Anniversary panel. There is also this meetup that comes up when you search Avatar. I don't think this is more of a fan thing than I think anything overly officially being involved in it, but hey, it's listed there in the schedule if you are attending. They're mainly emphasizing that there's going to be like cosplayers there, that sort of thing. But you can see it's basically the same lineup as San Diego Comic-Con from a few weeks back. So we have the merchandise panel, the publishing panel, and the big main stage panel that is going under the 20th anniversary kind of titling. And though as we'll get into it, it might be slightly different, and I'm not sure where expectations are going to be at for this one, but let's go through it. So the Merch Nation panel, again, we still do not know what happened during most of this panel at San Diego Comic-Con. So hopefully fans will get in and be able to reveal what happens at the New York Comic-Con version of this. So yeah, this is going to be on the Thursday of the event, October 9th, 3:30 to 4:30, New York time, of course. Preview of all new toys and game lines for next year with exclusive reveals, and there will be a chance to win special prizes. So the way that this was marketed at SDCC, this was basically a Jazwares and Magic the Gathering panel with a little bit of other stuff kind of thrown in. We don't know what the Jazwares stuff was at all, because it seems like Magic fans, actually mostly maybe scalpers, kind of maybe got in on that panel to mean that we didn't hear what happened in terms of the merchandise news. So yeah, the idea for Magic, it's a bit of a weird situation where like the spoiler season for Avatar Magic doesn't really start until I think it's October 28th. The lead in, like with about 3 weeks to go until the set actually comes out. But they're not going to miss an opportunity to have some sort of a thing going on at New York Comic Con. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there maybe is another promo card here, or they just also have the Katara promo card that they're giving out at this event as well. But I would expect them to maybe talk a little bit about some stuff here, especially now that like the lineup has been officially revealed. I kind of wouldn't be maybe surprised if potentially this is maybe where we learn about like, hey, what's the promo card that's in the bundle? What are the different cards that are in the Commander's bundle? Maybe we get a proper look at the cards that are in the scene boxes, because we haven't really properly seen what they are just yet. That would be a nice way to do a kind of partial preview without having to overly reveal too much of the main set. But we'll see what they do with that. But yeah, Jazwares, hopefully they finally get the information out of this panel and we maybe hear about what Wave 2s are for that. And then I will say, I'm actually also interested to see like if what the other like merchandise partners kind of have to say. Like who are we talking about when it comes to that sort of thing? Probably still a little bit early to overly talk about merchandise for the movie, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Jazwares like teased something or another, maybe without like images, but like said something like that. That would be kind of cool. The publishing panel we've already gone over. This was like the first one announced. It's on the Friday of the event, 6:30 to 7:30. Abrams, Dark Horse, Webtoon, and Magpie. Again, I don't think I'm expecting anything from Magpie or Webtoon. So it's really all on Abrams and Dark Horse. Like I said, what I'm thinking for Abrams is that Awakening of Roku still won't be out. So like, are they going to reveal that like Karuk is the next Avatar for Chronicles of the Avatar? I'm not sure. Avatar Legacy, Avatar Legends Book 2, I think is probably maybe the most likely reveal on the novel side of things, just to say who the character is, what era it's set in. Dark Horse, of course, have the Kaya comic and also the Kyoshi Warrior kind of single issue miniseries thing to explain in proper detail. That still should probably be the main thing coming out of it, but I will say, if they don't actually announce anything else except like further details on those two, I will be a little bit annoyed with Dark Horse if that's all they have to say. And then we'll just see if anything else kind of comes out of this. It'd be cool if they revealed maybe Bending Academy Book 2. That'd be an interesting reveal. We still don't have that yet. though there is a few weeks to go until the actual convention, of course. So yeah, the publishing panel is a weird one where like we kind of almost just are getting the news we almost expected to get at SDCC. So we'll see if there's actually anything more to it than that. Next, we have the 20th anniversary panel. So this is actually going to be on Sunday. So like they're kind of reversing this from SDCC, where this was basically the first panel there, really early on in the event, whereas this is actually more later in the event. So Sunday, October 12th, 11 to 12. It is on the main stage, which is good. So yeah, they just highlight basically the same legacy of the Avatarverse, but then it says, join original voice cast members as they celebrate the series. So no mention of Mike and Brian here, though remember the one that specifically mentioned Mike and Brian was more of a kind of press release kind of explanation of the panel and not necessarily the kind of more normal one. So we'll see if Mike and Brian do make an appearance here or not. If they're not here, does that rule out news? I wouldn't say so, because I think anyone following things will be like, wait, they had Seven Havens news at the last panel with this name at SDCC. This is the other big panel. If it's the same just without Mike and Brian, can't, you know, Janet Varney or someone like that just do that announcement like she's kind of done before for stuff like that? I don't think just the voice actors being there means you can't say anything. If you've planned it out ahead of time, you can have basically anyone kind of make that announcement if you have anything to say. Again, I still wouldn't be expecting anything huge, but I think we'd be looking at some sort of a teaser like they did at SDCC, probably for the movie, because it will mark like a year to go, basically. So yeah, 1 year to go for the movie is a somewhat significant milestone. It would be nice for them to finally open the door, show us off something about the movie, even if it is just like a basic image of a character or something equivalent to the Seven Havens image that we got. Will they do any further teasing of Seven Havens? I'm not really sure. For the franchise, I think it makes a little bit more sense to do the movie, give the movie a visual. And that way they get through the panels where the timing isn't maybe perfectly right for a lot of information. But we come out of the year with the idea of, well, we have kind of dates for both projects. They've both been officially announced. We have visuals for both projects. That'd be the main thing, I think, coming out of this, kind of getting to the end of the year, wrapping up the year, and just knowing that we've started the conversation on both series. And so there is that expectation in that, yeah, if they just do this as basically a voice actor panel, just with the slight extra hype of it being the 20th anniversary year, and there's no news, I think fans are allowed to be kind of pretty disappointed at that, because they kind of set up the idea that, oh, they're making announcements during the 20th anniversary panels. That's the precedent that's been set. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. I'm not sure right now what to expect. Maybe closer to the time we'll get more of a kind of press release that maybe gets across how big the Avatar presence at the overall event is actually going to be. But so far, it looks pretty good, like with the same lineups. And I think the expectation is that there's going to be probably more fans who are directly involved in the fan base at this event. So we probably should get a bit more coverage of what's happening at this as well. So we'll move on from New York Comic Con. I'll do speculation on it closer to the time when we maybe have a little bit more information. But we'll move on to some publishing information. So I previously covered the news that this book, the Avatar Paint with Water book, had been delayed from like December into August. Pretty massive delay for a book that already had preview pages out. So the impression you get from that is that the book is kind of ready to go. They're just choosing to release it at a different time. And I definitely take it that this book is probably doing something similar. Avatar: The Last Airbender, Relics of the Four Nations. Less a book and more a collection of items again. Remember, this is a 16-page book. So there's not much book here. I think the pages are just going to explain what the relics that you actually get are. From the description, they say you get Katara's necklace, a pop-out foam glider, a blue spirit patch, a Bossing Say pin, paper lanterns, and more. And I'm guessing the 16 pages just explain what those items actually are, where you see them in the show, that sort of thing. It's been pushed from, I think it's like mid to late-ish October this year. I forget the exact date off the top of my head, but October into the 3rd of March 2026. So it's about a 5-month-ish delay. It's maybe more like four and a bit. But still, it takes it from being a 2025 book to being very clearly a 2026 book. Why are they doing this? The only thing I can think of is just that, kind of like this book, they're maybe trying to move it into 2026 to latch onto some 2026 Avatar Studios launch hype, Aang movie hype. Certainly with this one, with how close it is. But also, like, there's going to be that kind of thing of, well, we have a few novels coming out towards the end of this year. And is it better to launch a book at the tail end of your 20th anniversary celebration, or in the build-up to a movie coming out? Because if you schedule an Avatar The Last Airbender book in more like October, and it's not a movie-related book, are you also kind of maybe creating a little bit of a situation where your book might not sell because everyone's on movie hype, but we're doing a book about the original series, and like, you know, there's that sort of idea. So actually filling in the kind of early part of 2026 might actually be a decent spot to put your book out, while still benefiting from the fact that hopefully 2026 in general is just a hype year for Avatar as we build more for the end of the year and the launch of the movie. And you can begin to see the schedule kind of forming for like 2026. We're like, okay, we've got I Am Sokka, we've got Relics of the Four Nations now, the Amigurumi book, Paint with Water, and obviously some of the comics are going to slot in here. Probably like, I don't know, March, April, May is going to be where at least the Kaya book or the Kyoshi Warrior comic, I guess, is going to be scheduled for. We don't really know. We'll find out at New York Comic Con, I assume. And then there will have to probably be some other stuff in that, like, obviously, then you will have your July book release, which should be Avatar Legends Book 2, which again might be revealed at New York Comic Con. We just don't know. And then, yeah, we also would expect probably more for the end of the year, the next Chronicles of the Avatar thing, which probably should be Karuk Book 1 if they're going with the obvious kind of answer. And then remember that the Bending Academy series should have releases that are probably either every 4 or every 6 months. So we'll maybe have 2 or 3 of them in the year as well. And you can see that publishing is going to gradually fill itself in over the rest of the year. But at the moment, we don't have a ton of announcements. I would also keep in mind the idea that there's going to be a lot of books scheduled for like October 2026. A lot of books that were meant to be probably January releases this year with the previous release date for the movie that have now had to be held back. And in a way, some of these publishers are having to, in a way, fill in that giant gap where they plan to have a lot of books released early in the year. Now that's delayed by like an entire year. We have to delay some of our books from here into that period, and you can sort of see what's happening here. Like there's a bunch of factors that I think play into what's happening with the schedule here, and most of them do come down to the fact that, yeah, the movie was January, now it's October. A lot of companies are going to have to scramble to deal with that. So that's that. Next, we have Ultimate Guard. So these Squareo deck boxes, which, of course, I've reviewed the Aang and the Cabbage Merchant ones that I already have. I actually have the big Appa box on the way, so I am going to do a video on that when I get it. Especially because they announced the Avatar Jumpstart and the Beginner box. I think I want to store that big grouping of all the different theme decks in my Appa box, and that's kind of why I'm getting it. So I'm excited to see what the quality is like when it arrives. But the news here is that we have basically wave 2 of these boxes announced. So of course, the initial wave was these 9, where again, the Cabbage Merchant was the quote-unquote chase of the group, where there's less of them available, but the other 8 were the standard kind of initial launch wave for Avatar. Now we have Avatar Karuk, Avatar Roku, Avatar Kyoshi, and an Avatar State Avatar Aang. Now, straight away, a lot of people might be going, hey, you could have had this like perfect wave of 4 if you replaced the Aang with Avatar Yang Chen. And I agree. I definitely agree that like that would have been an incredibly cool wave to just have it be the past Avatar wave. Now, it's still a wave of all avatars. It's still a wave of one avatar of every element, and avatars all in a row, basically. So I get that. But we already have Aang. Admittedly, I think the Avatar State variant is always a good thing to do with Aang. And I actually think it looks quite cool. Like the contrast between Smiley Aang and then angry Avatar State Aang is actually quite cool. In addition to the fact that as you go through this here, you can see that like he does have all 4 elements. So on one side you can see he has earth and fire. On the other side you can see he has air and water. So it is pretty nice, I think, the way they do these. They're weird, they're kind of goofy, but I think they are kind of charming in their own way. And especially for some of these past avatars, like especially I would say Kyoshi and Karuk, they don't really get much merch. So while we're waiting for a lot of that stuff, it's like, hey, do you want a really weird square-shaped Kyoshi kind of box/figurine type thing? Well, here you go. There's not much Kyoshi merch, and especially with Avatar Magic the Gathering coming out, even if you're only planning to get like a few packs, put the cards you get in the box. Even if you're not planning to do a ton with these things, this is a decent way to do card storage. Again, they are more deck boxes, and that they'll store up to like 100 and something sleeved cards. If you're planning to get tons of cards and store them in here, you probably would need something bigger like the Appa here. But that's just that. So I think these are very, very cool. I really like the detail on the faces and just how kind of weird and unusual they are in that, are we ever going to get something that's particularly like these ever again? I'm not really sure. Obviously, when the Avatar set comes out, I want to say this as well from a TCG accessory point of view, Magic always has either Ultra Pro or Ultimate Guard come out with like basically a full lineup of TCG accessories to go with the set. And I'm assuming that's going to happen for Avatar as well. So while these are weird deck boxes, we are going to get normal deck boxes that have some of the art from the set on the, on a more basic deck box. We'll get play mats, you'll get card binders and stuff like that. All the different accessories will be kind of options for you. We just don't have the full information on that yet. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Ultra Pro, but because Ultimate Guard have this kind of avatar deal, maybe they're the ones doing it. We just don't know just yet. I definitely like these. In terms of which ones I'm maybe going to get, I think Kyoshi is definitely one I want to get. So Kyoshi feels like a lock for me. And then I can also see myself grabbing the Karuk one just because I don't think there's going to be that much Karuk merch otherwise. So I think I'll go for these two here. And I already have the first Aang, so I'm not sure I need to get this one. And then who knows, I might pick up Roku if I badly need another deck box. But yeah, really like these for what they are, but we'll move on. So the last piece of news is this video on Instagram, which is an interview with one of the kind of Jazwares people at the Jazwares booth at a convention. I'm not sure if it's from San Diego Comic-Con. It probably is from a different convention, but I'm not sure. Either way, there's a bit of information in here. I'm not going to play it here, but it's only like 2 minutes long. I definitely recommend watching it if you are interested in the toy line, because there's cool stuff. Like there's a few mentions of like the theatrical, the Aang movie kind of coming out. They don't go as far as to directly kind of say we're going to have merchandise for the movie, but it's sort of implied in the background there, and we know from other stuff that they are planning to do that. So like this launch here for the 20th anniversary with just the ATLA stuff is like, okay, this is the initial launch, and like she talks about how the early July launch kind of includes the kind of 4.5-inch figures, but like she doesn't really mention anything else. So it kind of highlights that, okay, it wasn't a mistake that some of the stuff came out early in Target. That was purposefully part of like an early launch of part of the line. Now, the way she worded it, it was like just those lineups, so just the kind of the Aang and Zuko that you can see up here in the corner. That she only mentions those two, even though we know that it was these, the little elementals, and actually the Zuko collector figure are all out right now. So I don't know what's happening there, but the key point, she says that the launch for the actual toy line is meant to be in October. So that's kind of good to know that that's when they're actually planning to fully release the line. And then there is a mention like going forward that they will have more kind of refreshes, new characters. And I would say the main kind of piece of news here is that she specifically mentions Suki by name as one of the kind of characters who is not in any of the stuff that we know of so far, who will be coming to the line. Now, we don't know if that means, like, does that mean Suki's getting a collector's figure? Is she just going to be in the Little Elementals line? I'm not sure. But again, it's cool that the way I interpret it is that they consider Suki kind of one of the core main characters who hasn't yet been in Wave 1, who will be in Wave 2. And like Suki is mentioned before, like even like Toph and stuff like that. But I take it to almost be the fact that Suki was used instead of one of the obvious characters, and that, like, everyone knows, of course, they're going to do Toph. They're going to do, you know, Sokka. They're going to do Azula, Iroh. And then you get into that group of characters who often lines have ended before they've got to Suki, Mei, Ty Lee, and hopefully we get them as figures, you know, sooner rather than later. So I took it as a little bit of a positive that Suki got mentioned immediately, when oftentimes she does get a little bit forgotten when you group up the characters together. So fun stuff there. I continue to maintain that Jazwares has not communicated particularly well about the line, though I guess, you know, with it only being out in October, it's still early-ish yet, but we're getting close. And the fact that, like, the information isn't really up on their website, I don't think, like, there are online listings to order the full line yet or anything like that. So, you know, that stuff's going to have to hit kind of sooner rather than later. And if they are planning to really have this appeal to all fans, where can we get the information from? Like, it's cool that you can say this on the convention floor, but, like, where's just the core information out there online? That's what kind of needs to change and needs to evolve. And hopefully we'll get the news from the merch panel at New York Comic Con. But going to wrap it up there, getting back into the kind of news groove in terms of, like, being quite busy covering Comic Con and then finishing up City of Echoes coverage. Just getting into the flow of, like, okay, this is what news is typically like, rather than the crazy kind of hype moments of the year. But let me know what your thoughts are about the New York Comic Con lineup. I suppose mainly this: are you expecting an equivalent reveal at the New York Comic Con panel or not? That's definitely a big one. But just thoughts on everything that was revealed here. Let me know. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.